or the final topic of the introduction. How should I study Gita? All of us here respect Gita. Forget all of us. Most of the people, a lot of the people in the world respect Gita as a wonderful scripture. I told you, even in Facebook it is 20 to 40 million people considers Gita as a holy book. Lot of people praise Gita, right? Even if they don't know anything, they think Gita is high, something great. Somebody preaches Gita also. In the second chapter, Krishna beautifully describes this. He tells some people speak about Gita as a wonder. Some people hear the Gita as a wonder. Some people talk about Gita as a wonder. And what is the greatest wonder? Nobody understands anything. It's a joke he tells in the second chapter. So, is this good enough? Is my respect and reverence and the academic knowledge of Gita is good enough to gain that happiness we spoke last week? Absolutely not. Anybody, right? Anybody with little bit of effort will be able to intellectually understand something. But that is not going to solve the problem. This is the biggest problem in the traditional academic learning with the scriptural study. So one thing I would say, if you come here to study Gita, you are wasting your time. You are using Gita to study about yourself. That is the shift we need to make. Suppose I study Gita or Bible or Quran, I am wasting my time. God doesn't need one more person to learn his scripture. I am learning that scripture as a roadmap to know myself. It's like a map. Suppose I have a map which tells me that by following this direction, I will be reaching New York City. If I study the map perfectly, I will be able to tell you, right, in 45 minutes I have to take turnpike, exit N, and then I have to make this much turn, and this would be the typical traffic there. And if I sit here, is that going to take me to the destination? Absolutely not. So this scripture is only a roadmap. It takes me to the destination. It gives me the direction to the destination. So what I have to do? I have to follow that destination and travel so that I will reach the destination. So this is very important. So this traditional or not traditional, I won't say traditional, the typical study of the Gita is mere intellectual study of the Gita. Such people will be able to quote Gita left and right. If you go to a university, the professors will be able to quote the Gita left and right without any problem. But their stress level is so high. I was hearing a joke, not joke, it is very serious thing, right? A friend of ours, he conducts workshops on stress management. He conducts workshops on stress management. And he was telling me, what? I'm stressed because of the so many workshops that is coming ahead. So this is what happens. The teachers of the Gita get stressed. So be careful, because this is the study we have to do properly. Otherwise, it won't help us. You're wasting your time. None of us want to take a degree here. It's not for an academic degree or 5 credits we are studying Gita. We are studying Gita for a different purpose. We have to stamp this in our mind, in our study. Otherwise, that study won't generate any value. You will hear pravachans after pravachans from Swami A to Swami B. But my problems are still my problem. Isn't that typically happening? So now we have to change that. So how? First thing is the beautiful analogy or simile given by the meditation verses of Gita. The meditation verses of Gita compares Gita as milk. It tells Sarvopanishado Gavo Doktha Gopala Nandana Partho Valsa Sudhir Bhokta Duktham Gita Vradam Mahad. Have you heard of that verse? It is part of the meditation verses of Gita. It tells Gita is like milk. Why do you need milk?
Nourishment.
Yeah, it is for my own health, right? Why do I drink milk? It's a universal food. It gives me nutrition. It makes me healthy. Suppose I take that milk. I say that this milk is wonderful. Suppose I put flowers in front of milk. Is that going to help me? So for that milk to benefit me, what it has to do. I have to consume that milk, and that milk has to be digested in my system. Without consumption and digestion, what is going to happen? It won't benefit me at all. So Gita is like that. So if I consume the Gita and if I don't digest it, if I consume a food and that food is not digested, what is going to happen? The undigested food is a toxin, right? It creates problem for you. So the undigested scriptural teaching will create a problem for you. And that such people are the violent, they are the one who make violence, and they are the one who goes and hit other people, etc. Any scripture. It doesn't matter what is this color of the scripture is. So Gita has to be digested. It has to be consumed, not to be worshipped. Of course, worshipping is good. You can always preach that this is good, it will give you help. But unless and otherwise you consume that milk and digest it, it won't add any value. Am I making any sense? This is what the Gita is. Yes. You have to change your approach in studying the Gita. Otherwise it won't benefit you. So that's one point. So for this, the ancient sages of India created a beautiful learning program. Suppose you go and study artificial intelligence or statistics or math, typically there is a learning program which is suited to learn that particular subject. True, right? If you want to study artificial intelligence, they will ask you to learn math, statistics, and then programming so that you can understand artificial intelligence well. So like that, for studying and understanding Gita, the rishis of India came up with a three-stepped approach. Last week also we saw a three-stepped approach for how the Gita is working in us, right? Mala Nivrti, Vikshepa Nivrti, Avarana Nivrti. Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Today we are going to see how should I go and study the Gita. It says, traditionally it says Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. Have you heard of that term? Yes. What is first is Shravanam typically is translated as listening, but it is the study. Because in ancient days, how does the study happen? Orally, right? It was only through the oral communication. But now we do have multiple means of studying. So first thing is systematic study. Second one is, I said, it has to be digested. You have to analyze it. You don't want to take it just because Krishna said it. So you have to understand it, you have to analyze it, you have to make sure that all the doubts are cleared. That is the second step. Contemplation and analysis. Please do that, otherwise this class won't be helpful to you. If you think that if you want to see a positive change in you, if you want to smile more, if you want to relate with other people, all the benefits we talked earlier, if you want to accomplish that, please follow this step. This is a time-tested step. And the third one is internalization through practice. Because unless and otherwise I haven't internalized and practicing it, it won't benefit me. So these are the three steps we will see one by one. The first step is called study. So the traditional definition is consistent and systematic study of the Gita. It's not like you come to one class and then you forget it, or then I study one day and then next year I take the book. Consistent and regular study of the Gita. If you spend 30 minutes a week, that is good enough, right? You attend the class, just think about this class, just make sure that I'm not bluffing. Like if you have any doubt, we have a WhatsApp group is open, you can always ask me or call me or anybody. Karthik, I already told my disclaimer, I'm not the expert. If you have any doubt, which I don't know, I can always connect you with the right people or I can find the answer for you. But it's very important that you follow this consistent and systematic study of the Gita for a sufficient length of time. So it's like meditation class also. Some people come and say that, I want to start meditation. When am I going to get control over my mind? 2 lessons or 3 lessons? No, it is for a consistent period of time. No shortcuts here. If somebody tells that by touching your head you will be a master of the Gita, it's wrong, right? It's something that you cannot go and buy and take a pill. By eating a pill, you cannot become a master of the Gita or any subject for that matter. How do you learn swimming?
Practice.
How do you learn programming?
Practice.
Yeah. If you read the book and go and program, it won't work. It's the same thing. So, systematic, consistent study of the Gita. That's why the rishis have developed a beautiful methodology. I would go one step further. Every tradition has good teaching. If something is truth, it is not exclusive to our tradition, right? Truth is available to everybody in the humanity. So what makes us special in the Bhagavad Gita is the methodology, the teaching methodology. How systematically the teaching is given. Because the same truth can be found in any scriptures, if you really look at that. No doubt about it. But the difference is the teaching methodology. Very systematic. Logically, it unfolds the teaching one by one. And the third one, which you may have to excuse me, like you have to have a competent teacher who can unfold the teaching. So here we are all students, so we will try to do our best. They say, right, if Buddha is not available, what is your refugee? Dharma, right? And if Dharma is not available, Sangham, the group, and that's what we are doing here. So that's the approach. So the study, systematic study of the Gita for a consistent amount of time under a teacher. Because why a teacher is required? It is very easy to misinterpret. It is very easy to get away from the teaching.
Yes.
Wrong interpretation can come. So that's why the teacher is important. A teacher who is trained in the traditional teaching methodology. So that's very important. So this is the first step. This is the study. Now, once that study is over, right, you have to mentally analyze, because I can always give my perspective, but you should take that home and try to see if there is a gap in the teaching. Unless and otherwise you don't understand it. Sometimes when listening the class, it appears to be very easy. But when you go and think about it, some doubts may come. So analyze the teaching, connect the dots, make sure that you follow. Please do this as an exercise, because this is going to worth you. I can tell you from my own experience how much it is going to change your life. How much positively it is going to change your life. You will realize. So that's why I'm publishing the slides also earlier. You can take this, go through that and connect the dots, because this is a kind of meditation if you do this. If you go and read these slides, make sure that sometimes you may get new idea. You can come and discuss also with us. So make sure that it is not just listening. It is some analysis and contemplation is there. For example, last week topics, we said, about happiness. You can look at your own life and see whether what we said is correct or not. So that's very important. Analyze the teaching by connecting the dots and clarifying any open questions. So discuss with the teacher or the fellow travelers any questions so that it is clear to you. Because otherwise the teaching won't make any difference. It's not something that needs to be given from the platform. You just listen, feel some good, got some spiritual stimulus, go home, and then tomorrow also you have to listen. That's why, like, you start with Vivek Chudamani, then you come to Bhagavad Gita, then you come to Upanishad, classes after classes after classes. Nothing is happening. I told you the story of Swami Chinmayananda, right? This is one of the story I really like. That one fellow went to Swamiji and said, I studied Gita 3 times and nothing has happened. And what did he say? Has Gita gone through 1 time? He was a very revolutionized monk. So one day, I don't know whether you heard this story, like during exam time, like one lady took his son to Swamiji and said, please bless my child so that he will score 100% in his exam. You know what was his answer? The only thing that can happen is the oil on his head may stick into my hand. Other than nothing is going to... Unless and otherwise you put some effort, you make yourself change. Here the problem is, they say, right, 50% is me and 50% is God. What I am expecting?
100% God.
I don't expect by 50%. And what God can give you is certain opportunities, certain situations. And from there, it is whose responsibility? It is my responsibility. So from that perspective, all of us are blessed. So, right, we got, how many of the people living in India get the opportunities we got? Only a few, right? Only a handful of the people got this opportunity. And in spite of that, we sit and cry. So think of that. So first step is Shravanam, or the study. So study of the Gita under a competent master for a sufficient period of time. Second thing is contemplation and analysis. So once that is done, okay, once I am intellectually convinced that okay, Karma Yoga is going to work for me, or the Upasana Yoga is going to help me, then what shall I do? What is the third step? Internalization and practice. So get into the deeper meaning of the verses, right? By practicing. So if it is Karma Yoga, I have to practice Karma Yoga. I can write a book on Karma Yoga, but it won't help me. So go deep into the teaching and practice it. And for your convenience, when every chapter starts, I will give you the practice. This is what you have to go do, X, Y, Z. This is the expected benefit. I'm going to give you that.
Perfect.
Okay? So that's every verse has a practice, or at least a few verses has a corresponding practice. So I can point that out to you so that you can go and practice. That much I can do, but practicing, who has to practice? Each one of us have to practice. It's like teaching cooking. You can watch the best videos in the YouTube. You can talk about cooking, but unless and otherwise you go to the kitchen and do the cooking, you cannot be an expert in that. Sports, you can read about cricket or any sports and understand all the rules, but unless and otherwise if I practice it, it won't help. So this is the time-tested process. The practice should be in such a way that this becomes my second nature. And I will show you, I will point out to you some executive training out in the market which teaches you the same thing. For example, Good to Great. Have you heard of that training? It's a popular leadership training. Executive Presence. That's another popular training. Energy Leadership Index. That's another popular executive training. I'll point out to that training and I'll tell you what is being discussed here is covered there. So you will be amazed the depth of Gita, how much it is covering the life. So this is what the 3-step process is. So I'm going to give you 3 learning tips, and then that will complete our first topic. And then any questions or any group discussions we can have, and then we can go to the second topic. So this learning process, we summarized it. The proper study with the help of a teacher. Second thing is the analysis, contemplation, and a clarification of any doubts. And one more thing is that, right? So Gita, you can question anything. There is nothing wrong in that. So don't think that this is holy book, I cannot question it. You will see that. And then the third thing is you have to internalize this through the practice. So now, 3 learning tips. One is faith versus understanding. Typically, what was the approach of people on the religious books or the scriptures? Oh, this is came down from the God, so I cannot question it. That won't work for Gita or any scripture for that matter. The Gita gives the freedom to question anything. What is the final verse of the Gita? 68th verse of the 18th chapter. What is Krishna tells? I taught you everything. Now you think, and if you're convinced, follow. We don't say, thou shalt believe, or else you will go to hell. That's not the approach. You have to understand before you follow. That's number 1. So don't blindly accept anything from anybody, including Krishna. Again, I quoted Swami Chinmayananda multiple times, right? He tells, typically his classes starts with or lecture starts with the point that he tells, longer the beard, greater your suspicion. Your attitude should be longer the beard, greater the suspicion. So you have to have that analytical questioning mind. But, and third thing is, you don't have to be afraid of the God in Gita. The God is, some people say that I'm God fearing. Is that a good quality? Is he a tiger or a leopard or a ghost to be afraid of? I thought God is somebody who takes me out of all the fears. So you don't have to. It's like traditionally, right, when the father of the house comes in, right, all the kids become silent, as if like a tiger is coming to the house. That attitude has to go. It was good for a community which was not cultured, which was not disciplined, to make them into a initial discipline. That is good. But we all pass that stage. So you don't have to afraid of Krishna. Don't think that Krishna will be upset with you. In the 4th chapter, you will see the revolution. Narrates statements. Krishna tells, hey, you may not call me as Krishna. That's okay. Whosoever come to me in whatsoever form, I will accept them. It doesn't matter which name you call him. These are the revolutionary teachings of the Gita. So if people follow these Gita's teaching, there won't be any fight, right? Absolutely no fight, because no exclusivity here, and also there is nothing to be worried. But at the very same time, so you have to balance both. Some people approach Gita how? To find fault. That also you have to have some basic faith. So let me ask you one thing. A scientist, when he do a research, how does he approach it? Initially, he start with an hypothesis.
Yeah.
What is that hypothesis? This could be true.
Be something.
Right? We have scientists here, like people like Nagi is there who does research. Then you put all your effort thinking that that would be right, unless and otherwise it is proved to be wrong. So give that much benefit of doubt to the teaching. So Krishna is only saying that, right? First, when you read the Gita, if you don't understand a verse, instead of concluding that Krishna is stupid, you have to suspect your understanding initially. Because this is a time-tested teaching. Suppose when I read theory of relativity, if I don't understand, because if you read quantum mechanics and if you see all those Schrodinger equation, oh my God, I cannot follow anything. Now if I conclude that the Schrodinger is useless, what is that? It's exactly like that. So follow the teaching with a positive attitude, with a faith, but don't blindly accept. So we have to find that balance. Typically, people are on one end or the other end. Some people, they don't even think anything. They don't use their intellect at all. In Sanskrit, we call it kapola kalpitam. What is that? Have you heard of that phrase? Kapola kalpitam. If the skull starts thinking without the brain. So such people like that. No thinking. Idiotic reasoning. That's it. Wow. Some people are extremely skeptic. Anything you say, they don't believe. Such people also cannot progress. So have faith. With that positive faith, approach the scripture. So if you don't follow it, ask with a teacher. Or probably that interpretation may not be right. So understand that there is a sequence in Gita, right? Verse 1 to verse 700 are logically connected, well balanced. So if I don't understand the logic, go and ask somebody. I had that trouble. Second chapter, I had a lot of trouble in connecting the verses. So initially I thought, okay, this is not good. So finally I met somebody who can clarify the doubt. And once it is clarified, then I realized how idiotic was my own thinking. That's the realization. So just give that benefit of doubt. And definitely, one thing Krishna tells or we tells in the Vedanta is, there is nothing in the Gita that is against the logic. There could be something which is beyond logic, but there should not be anything that is against the logic. What is against the logic? It's absolutely useless, right? Suppose I say that I am sitting here, therefore it is going to rain outside. Those type of statements cannot come in Gita. If you think that that is the interpretation, understand that there is something wrong in our understanding. So this is very important. So this is a big learning tip. Second learning tip is very important. Context versus message. So all of us know that the context of the Gita is what? It's a big battle, Mahabharata battle between Pandava and the Kauravas. So typically, traditionally, what happens? When we study Gita, we get into the context and miss the message. So in management, we call that as missing the obvious. Have you heard that famous story of Sherlock Holmes? I might have told this to some classes, but I'll tell that story just because this will make the point very clear. So Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes are friends, all of you know. So one day they took a vacation and they went for a camping. They had a wonderful time. They did some trekking, they exhausted and they were so tired. They went to their tent and started sleeping. It was around 1 o'clock in the around midnight. Sherlock Holmes called Dr. Watson and he asked, "Watson, what do you see now?" Dr. Watson looked up and he said, "Oh, what a beautiful sky it is." Sherlock Holmes said, "What else you see right now?" He said, "I see beautiful stars. Never ever I had such a clarity in seeing this star." Sherlock Holmes asked, "What else you see this?" He said, "If this star is visible right now, that means the season is this, and the speciality of the season is this birds will come from this region to this region, and this much rain is expected." All that things he started giving. Sherlock Holmes got really mad. He said, "Idiot, somebody stole our tent." So what happened? He saw everything except the real obvious. This is a story used in management circles to convey this message. So people see Arjuna's problem. People see why the Gita happened, means what was Duryodhana doing in that 3 hours. These were the doubts you get in the classes. How can Krishna teach Gita in the middle of a battlefield? How can Krishna teach Gita in a poetic form? Was he singing? Right? Next is, right, how Vyasa heard what Krishna taught in the battlefield. So we get caught up in that stars, we get caught up in that climate, and we see that we miss the tent. So make sure that Mahabharata is only a context, and don't miss the message with the context. Replace that context with our own life. Each one of us are waging a battle. Sometimes it is a health issue, sometimes it is a social issue, sometimes it's a life problem. Who don't have a problem here? Can you raise your hand? I would come and prostrate you if you don't have a problem here. Everybody has a battle to wage. And how am I approaching that war of life? That's the context. So the context of the Gita is there in Uganda. The context of the Gita is equally valid in Wall Street also. So you have to substitute that. I'll give you one more example. This is a very interesting example which I always talk about this example. Who discovered gravity? Isaac Newton. Right? So suppose instead of gravitational message, suppose I start discussing about, was this happened in 16th century or 17th century? Was it a red apple or a blue apple? Was it did the apple fall on his head or not? If such discussion happens and forget gravity, how ridiculous it is, right? So that's, when I hear the discussions on Gita, this is what I'm hearing. So don't worry about Arjuna. What in the world? Why should you worry about Arjuna? He has gone. Whether he said A, B or C, whether he killed Bhishma or whether he ran away from the battlefield, that is not my problem. My problem is how am I facing my problems of life? Unless and otherwise you don't make that shift, Gita will be an outside problem. So please do a subjective analysis. So this is what the context versus message. Every situation that overwhelms us is the context of the Gita. So Arjuna is only a prototype. So if you take the prototype as real, that itself is, all of you are professionals, you know that. So that doesn't make any sense. So that's the next point. Finally, now you all got inspired. Let me start studying Gita. If you go and pull out, buy some 4 or 5 commentaries and start reading by yourself initially. I made that mistake, that's why I put this point. Some of these commentaries could be contradictory, apparently contradictory. You brought this point to me last week.
Yes.
So initially, it is better to stick with one commentary till you have a foot on the ground. Once you understand the overall picture, all these commentaries will make sense to you. So it is my sincere request, if you have advanced, you are welcome to do any commentaries. And at least I personally feel that every master had some valid point, right? You cannot say that tradition X is better than tradition Y. ISKCON has its own merit, Chinmaya Mission has their own merit. So I cannot say that ISKCON is completely bad and Chinmaya Mission is good. I cannot say that vice versa also. So every master has added something unique to the Gita. So let's respect all masters and take what is required for us. But initially, if you are following this class, follow this commentary and follow this path, at least we cover the second chapter. Once we complete the second chapter, you have your foot on the ground. Then you will be able to go and read any commentary without any problem. Then you won't get confused. That much I can guarantee. So please have patience till the second chapter and follow this process. Please internally analyze and contemplate and proceed. Okay, so this is the lesson 4 summary. So we recommended learning processes. Initially, study with a teacher for a sufficient period of time. Second thing is analysis and contemplation and removal of all the doubts. And the third one is internalization through practices. And try to understand Gita rather than blindly believing in. You don't need to blindly believe in. Second thing is approach the Gita with some faith. So balance those two. Second is focus more on the message rather than the context. And the last one is initially try to stick with one commentary or one mode of teaching, because since we are doing this, just stick with this till the second chapter. How many lessons? Like 10 plus 15, around 25 lessons we will cover the second chapter. Then we should be good. You should be able to talk about Gita, understand Gita properly and practice all the things we say. So this completes the introduction to Gita. So we covered 3 topics again. One is we said what is Bhagavad Gita. We said Bhagavad Gita is a body of knowledge which is given by the universal intelligence for the benefit of the humanity, because it's a manual for bringing out my best version of life. Also it can be interpreted as it's a song about Bhagavan. It's a song given by Bhagavan or it's a song about Bhagavan. So 2 possible interpretations are there. It is a song about Bhagavan means it is a law, means Bhagavan means don't think that it's an entity. It is the natural order of the universe. We talked about that, right? And everywhere means we talked about that order that happens in the micro level, macro level, everything we talked about that. And then we saw what, right? Second topic we saw a brief history of the Gita, how the Gita got evolved. Like initially it is part of the Mahabharata. Vyasa compiled it and placed in Mahabharata. For a long period of time nobody could figure out Gita because Gita was sunk in that huge epic of Mahabharata. Then Shankaracharya took this out, he wrote a brilliant commentary. Thereafter Sanskrit commentaries started coming. In 1700 the first English translation came, and before that Jnaneshwara translated into Marathi, and that means then all the regional languages started commentaries on Gita or the translations of Gita, Tamil, Malayalam, Oriya, Bengali, all the languages. And then it started into English by Charles Wilkins, inspired by Warren Hastings, the first Governor General of India. And then from England, all the European languages Gita got translated, inspired by so many people. And it inspired the transcendentalist movements in USA. Emerson, Thoreau, Walt Whitman, all are examples. And then the greatest application of Gita was the Indian freedom struggle. Right from Rajaji in Tamil Nadu, Bharatiyar in Tamil Nadu, to Aravinda Ghosh in Bengal, Tilak in Maharashtra, Gandhiji in Gujarat, Subhash Chandra Bose in Bengal, all these people were inspired by this teaching. So that's the beauty, right? It covers the entire spectrum of India. Means Bharatiya wrote lot of poems on Gita. Rajaji wrote a brilliant book of Gita. Gandhiji's book is Anasakti Yoga. Tilak's book is what, right? Gita Rahasya. All these things came out. And then we said, how should we study? Why should I study Gita? Because am I studying Gita just to gain some scholarship? No, I want to change my life. I want to experience more happiness. I want to be more efficient. I want to relate myself better with other people. I wanted to do so many things. I wanted to be a better human being. I want to be a better father, right? I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better friend. And above all, I wanted to be an efficient and proficient individual. So that's why I'm studying Gita. And finally, how should I study Gita? I need to study with a teacher for some period of time, because these are all cryptic languages. It can create a lot of confusions. So better to study with a teacher for a sufficient period of time. But don't take the teacher blindly. So you have to do your own analysis and contemplation and connect the dots. Make sure that your doubts are cleared. And once you are convinced with the teaching, you have to go and practice it and internalize it. And when you practice it, make sure that you are not blindly rejecting anything and blindly accepting anything. You have to follow that balance. Second thing is, make sure that you are applying the teaching to yourself, not an Arjuna's problem. The context versus message. And finally, commentaries. Don't overwhelmed with the number of commentaries. Unfortunately or fortunately, Gita is the book that has maximum number of commentaries of any scriptures, more than Bible. So Gita has commented more than any other books in the planet. So what is the advantage? Advantage is it's good, but the disadvantage is it can confuse you.
Yes.
That's another problem. And then finally I will say and stop the introduction. The study of the Gita, as per Paramahamsa Yogananda, one of the greatest masters, it is the most simplest study. And also it would be the most difficult study. Why? It is the simplest of the simple, because you are not studying anything about anybody else. I am only studying myself. And I am not dependent upon anybody to learn about myself. Right? And it is the most complex one. Why? Because it's not the obvious. It is not the obvious. Because our natural training is to look outside for everything. It's very difficult for me to change that pattern and understand me. So it is the simplest of the simple and the difficult of the difficult. So, and I'll stop the introduction by saying one more quote from the Gita, the 6th chapter, verse 6, Krishna tells, who can make this happen for you? If you pray me, or if you pray $1 million to Krishna, or if you build a temple to Krishna, is that going to help? No. He said, Uttaret atmanatmanam na atmanam avasadhe atmaihi atmano bandhuhu atmaihi ripuratmana. You have to lift yourself by whom? Yourself. I always ask this question, who is responsible for your physical health? At least once in that class, one person in that class will say doctor. So if you are responsible for your physical health, who is responsible for your emotional health? Don't say that your spouse or children or father. That's what people say. So one person was telling me, I wanted to be happy always, but one of these people will make sure that I won't feel happy. So it is in my hand. So Uttaret atmanatmanam na atmanam avasadhe. And Atmaihi Atmano Bandhu. If I help myself, I become the best friend of myself. And if I don't support myself, I became the worst enemy of myself. So that's very important. So with that, we are concluding the first topic. Great. So next week, we will start Geeta Dhyana Sloka.